Well, GM is saying goodbye to one of their classic models, the Chevy Malibu. Now, they've been making Malibus since 1964. More than 2,000 workers are going to be laid off in a factory. They're shutting the factory down. And of course, they're always saying stuff like, oh, don't worry, we're going to make electric cars in that factory, buying these cars. And I doubt if this factory that they're shutting down, GM that makes the Malibus, is ever going to be put back into operation building electric battery vehicles.
Did you know that GM is shutting down entire production lines while sitting on billions in profits? Their latest announcement impacts thousands of workers, with plants in Michigan, Ontario, and Kansas seeing massive layoffs as the company pivots away from certain EV models and traditional vehicles. What's happening at GM isn't isolated. It's part of a seismic shift hitting the entire auto industry. Ford is slashing 4,000 jobs in Europe, Volkswagen might close entire factories, and Stellantis is cutting 4,000 positions in the US. But today, we're following the journey of the UAW workers as they face their greatest challenge in a generation, and the unexpected way they're fighting back. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. The automotive world was rocked when General Motors, a company that posted over $10 billion in profits last year, suddenly announced massive layoffs affecting thousands of workers. Picture this. Communities built around manufacturing plants, generations of families working the same assembly lines, and the sense of security that came with a union job at one of America's automotive giants, all suddenly thrown into chaos. Before this announcement, auto workers enjoyed what many considered the American dream: stable employment with good wages, comprehensive benefits, and the pride of building vehicles that defined American roads. The 2023 UAW contract negotiations had seemingly secured their future, with promises of job security, wage increases, and protections against plant closures. Workers believed they had finally gained ground after years of concessions, but that security crumbled when GM revealed plans to shut down or significantly reduce operations at several key facilities. Michigan's Orion Assembly, where workers have been building vehicles since 1983, faces an indefinite production pause. The Warren Tech Center, home to crucial engineering and design operations, will see significant workforce reductions. North of the border, Ontario's CAMI facility is scaling back production dramatically, leaving Canadian workers in limbo. And these shutdowns aren't just about facilities, they're about iconic American vehicles disappearing from production lines. The Chevy Bolt, once heralded as GM's affordable electric vehicle for the masses, is being discontinued despite respectable sales. The legendary Camaro, a symbol of American muscle for generations, saw its final model roll off the assembly line this year. Even GM's Bright Drop electric delivery vehicles, which represented the company's commercial EV strategy, face an uncertain future as production scales back. What makes these cuts particularly jarring is the timing. GM recently reported record-breaking profits exceeding $10 billion, with CEO Mary Barra taking home compensation worth approximately $29 million in 2023, roughly 362 times the median GM employee's salary. This stark contrast between corporate prosperity and worker hardship has fueled anger throughout affected communities. The 2023 UAW contract was supposed to prevent exactly this scenario. Union leaders had proudly announced job security provisions and protections against plant closures. However, buried within the contract language were escape clauses that GM is now exploiting. These provisions allow the company to reduce workforce or pause production when facing market conditions or force majeure events. Precisely the justification GM is now using to sidestep what workers believed were ironclad guarantees. The impact extends far beyond GM's direct employees. For every assembly plant job eliminated, approximately 7 additional positions disappear throughout the supply chain. Parts manufacturers like Lear Corporation and Magna International are already announcing their own layoffs in response. Local businesses near affected plants, from restaurants to retail stores, are bracing for significant revenue drops as workers tighten their belts. Local governments are being hit particularly hard. In communities where GM facilities represent major tax contributors, the revenue losses could be devastating. Cities like Lansing, Michigan, and Ingersoll, Ontario now face budget shortfalls potentially reaching millions, forcing difficult decisions about public services from education to infrastructure maintenance.
1,000 white-collar employees. This is the second layoff announced in as many months. CBS News Detroit's Gino Vici joins us from the GM Tech Center with more on those cuts.
Layoffs announced here at General Motors, not a good sign for the company, but it could also be a sign of the many challenges the auto industry is facing, like the EV dilemma. Auto industry experts say there is another looming issue on the horizon, and it can have far-reaching effects in the auto industry.
GM's official explanation points to slowing electric vehicle demand and shifting market conditions. "We must adjust our production capacity to align with current market realities," stated a company spokesperson in the announcement. Industry analysts note that EV sales growth has decelerated from explosive early adoption rates to more modest gains, particularly in certain price segments. Critics, however, see a different motivation. Labor advocates point to GM's continued stock buyback programs and dividend increases as evidence that shareholder returns take priority over worker well-being. "They're choosing profits over people," said one union representative, highlighting that the company continues investing billions in shareholder value while eliminating thousands of jobs. The final tally of this massive restructuring is staggering. Over 3,300 workers across multiple facilities are losing their positions. Michigan bears the heaviest burden, with approximately 1,900 jobs eliminated between Orion Assembly and various technical centers. Ontario's CAMI facility will shed roughly 800 positions, while the remaining cuts are distributed across smaller operations throughout North America. The losses span assembly line workers, engineers, administrative staff, and skilled trades positions. Those 3,300 GM workers aren't alone in their struggle. They're actually just the first wave in what's becoming an industry-wide tsunami of job cuts. While the UAW is still reeling from GM's announcement, Ford, Volkswagen, Stellantis, and Nissan are all slashing thousands of positions, creating what might be the UAW's most challenging battle in decades. The UAW leadership wasted no time responding to GM's actions. Within hours of the announcement, the union launched their Keep the Promise campaign, directly referencing what they see as GM's betrayal of contract commitments. UAW Vice President Mike Booth issued a strongly worded statement saying, "We will not stand idly by while corporations rake in billions and then attempt to eliminate the very jobs that created that wealth." The campaign includes digital advertising, community rallies, and public pressure tactics targeting GM executives. But as the UAW marshals resources to confront GM, the situation has rapidly expanded beyond a single company. Ford recently announced cuts of 4,000 jobs across its European operations, primarily in Germany and the UK. Volkswagen is shuttering multiple factories in Germany while threatening more global reductions. Stellantis, the parent company of Chrysler, Jeep, and Dodge, has already eliminated 4,000 positions across its US operations. And perhaps most alarming, Nissan revealed plans to eliminate 9,000 jobs globally, with North American cuts still being determined. UAW Vice President Booth has been especially vocal about what he calls an industry-wide assault on working families. In a recent address to members, Booth promised, "We will use every tool at our disposal to fight for our affected members, from legal challenges to public campaigns to direct action if necessary." His rhetoric signals a potential return to more militant labor tactics that defined earlier eras of UAW activism. The challenges facing the UAW are complex and multifaceted. Unlike previous battles that focused on a single company, the union must now coordinate responses across multiple automakers simultaneously. Each company presents unique circumstances. GM claims slowing EV demand, Ford cites European market pressures, while Stellantis blames regulatory costs. This forces the UAW to develop tailored strategies rather than a one-size-fits-all approach. The geographic dispersal of cuts presents another hurdle. With layoffs spanning Michigan, Ontario, Missouri, and beyond, coordinating effective responses becomes logistically difficult. Union representatives must maintain solidarity across regions with different economic realities and priorities. Adding further complexity, the cuts affect workers across various specializations, from assembly line workers to engineers to administrative staff, each with distinct concerns and contractual provisions. Internal tensions have emerged within the UAW itself. A vocal contingent of members, particularly from Michigan locals, has criticized President Shawn Fain's initial response as "all talk, no action," At a recent membership meeting in Flint, one worker stood up and demanded, "When do we stop with press releases and start with picket lines?" Meanwhile, other members, especially those from facilities not yet targeted, have expressed support for the leadership's measured approach that preserves options for negotiation. The UAW's current situation echoes historical challenges from the 1980s when Japanese competition first threatened American automotive dominance. During that crisis, the union embraced concession bargaining and joint labor management programs to save jobs. Today's approach seems to reject such cooperation, with Fain explicitly stating, "We will not accept corporate excuses or participate in our own destruction."
And when the EV demand didn't come through as we all expected, they had to change their strategy, and now they're looking at right-sizing their operations.
GM is likely not the only automaker that will be looking to right-size or shift their operations away from focusing so heavily on EVs. Stellantis stock is down 40% in the US and sales dropped 20% this quarter. And there is also another looming issue that could have a ripple effect in the automotive industry. Trump-era tariffs on foreign
presents a significant strategic shift from previous eras. Economic uncertainty and tariff threats are providing convenient cover for these massive cuts. Multiple automakers have cited potential border taxes in their layoff announcements, despite reporting strong overall profits. Industry analysts point out this dichotomy, with one noting, these companies are using economic anxiety as cover for restructuring they've wanted to implement for years. The consequences for affected communities extend far beyond the workers themselves. In Kansas City, where GM has reduced operations, city officials project losses exceeding $1 million annually in utility fees alone. The city's budget director recently told the city council, "We're looking at significant reductions in essential services if we can't make up this shortfall." In Michigan, Orion Township faces a potential 15% reduction in tax revenue, threatening funding for schools, emergency services, and infrastructure projects. As our journey through GM's restructuring comes to a close, it's clear we're witnessing more than just corporate strategy. We're seeing the future of American manufacturing unfolding before our eyes. This transformation affects everyone, whether you're shopping for your next vehicle or living in a community built around automotive jobs. The ripple effects extend far beyond factory floors. When production lines go silent, entire economic ecosystems suffer. School districts lose funding, small businesses close, decades of community identity vanish overnight. What kind of future are we building when quarterly profits outweigh generational stability? As consumers, we have power in our purchasing decisions. As citizens, we have voices that deserve to be heard.